Welcome everyone to the School Improvement Institute. This webinar is intended for schools that are just starting SI2. So we'll be talking today about getting started, about putting together your organizational structure, and just really doing a whole kind of overview of what SI2 is all about. My name is Sue Reynolds, and I'm president of the American Student Achievement Institute, home of the School Improvement Institute. So these are the topics that we'll be talking about today. We do want to look at the grant that your school is receiving from us. Also, we'll make some introductions of our staff to you. We'll do an overview of SI2, and then we'll actually talk about the 3 tasks that you'll complete. So every time we do one of these webinars, we'll talk about tasks, and we suggest that your steering team just continue to meet after the webinar and complete those tasks, or talk about how you're going to complete the tasks. So, okay, so a few introductions. My name is Sue Reynolds, as I mentioned. My job with SI2 is to be responsible for the program design and the webinars that you'll be participating in. I'm a former consultant for the Department of Education and also a former public school teacher and counselor. The person that you'll be working with between these webinars is Tina Weisman. Tina is wonderful. She is the SI2 Strategic Planning Specialist, so she'll be doing all kinds of things for you. She's responsible for any support that we provide. For example, when you submit your work to us, she will review it against our rubrics. She'll give you written feedback within 48 hours. She'll be there for on-call support when you need us. So she's your go-to person, and you're really lucky to be working with Tina. Tina is a former school principal of a school that was involved with SI2 for a lot of years and has been very successful with us. Her school actually has earned the our Top Gainer Award for gains in student achievement more years than any other SI2 school. She's also a former teacher at all levels, and she really gets strategic planning and will be very helpful to you. So please use her. We'll talk more about the services that she'll provide, but I wanted to let you know that she's in on this call. She's monitoring the chat and the questions that you're entering into our system, and she's there for you. So. Also, there are 3 other people on our staff who will be serving you behind the scenes. Amy Siegel is our program manager. She kind of runs the day-to-day stuff that we do with SI2. And then David Ernst is the programmer who's put together our online management system that you'll be using. And then Nancy Knowlting is our director of business. So those are the 5 people on our staff that will be serving you as you work in SI2. Okay, so let's talk about this grant that you've received from us. So in this grant agreement, we take the assurances that are in that grant agreement very seriously. One thing that we've said in that grant agreement is the things that we promise you that we'll provide you. We call those our deliverables. And we're very serious about providing those in a timely way and in a very proficient and professional manner. So the things that in the grant agreement that we promised you that we would provide for you is the SI2 online system. That is an online system where that helps you manage the school improvement process. It is customized for every school. We're going to show you today how to customize it. And then that system is full of templates and reports and a steering team manual. And then at the end of the process, there's an auto-generated school improvement plan and student assistance plan. So you'll be working in this system all year. And then at the end, when it's time to submit your school improvement plan to Department of Ed, or if you're a focus or priority school, your student assistance, your student achievement plan to your DOE outreach coordinator, what you'll do in our system is just push a button and out will pop a school improvement plan. So you're not going to have to worry about the format or the template or anything. The system will just take all the different components that you've entered in as you've completed your work throughout the year, and it will spit it out as a school improvement plan. And then you'll just upload that to DOE. It takes about 5 minutes, if that. So a lot of schools, our schools tell us that they really like the management system. It keeps them on task. There's all kinds of resources. And then they love it at the end when other schools are, trying to write this huge school improvement plan report that all they have to do is push a button. So, okay, so that's one thing we'll provide is the online system. Then another thing that we'll provide for you this year is steering team training like we're doing right now. So most of the training will happen as webinars like you're participating in right now, but some of it will be videos that you'll watch that will teach you how to do specific things. And then one of the things that we are really known for is our technical assistance for schools as they work through our processes. So these are the things that Tina will be providing. So she's going to monitor your steering team in a big way. And if there's a place where you start to fall behind, or we're getting red flags that your team's not quite engaged, or you might have questions, then we'll be initiating a phone call to you to say, gosh, we've noticed this or noticed that. Is there a way that we can help? Keep in mind that we've all worked in the schools for decades, and so we understand if you tell us, we had 8 snow days this month and we're running a little behind, we get that. So, we'll work with you if there's, places where you're struggling. Also, as I mentioned, every month there will be something that's due to us, and you'll submit that, and then within 48 hours, Tina will have read every word that you write, and she'll immediately, within 48 hours, write back to you, and she's either going to say, this was beautiful, wonderful. Normally, I think our instruction and our professional development is proficient enough that the work that you do is wonderful the first time. But she might also say, oh gosh, do you realize that these goals that you put in aren't really measurable? Let's work on that. And so she'll send you that as a message, and then you can call her for some individual help, or she might in her message tell you exactly what to do, and then you can just revise it and submit it back to us. So, so we're reviewing your submissions and providing written feedback. And then the other thing we'll provide is on-call support, so that anytime you need us, all you have to do is pick up the phone and call, and either Tina will take your call and answer any questions that you have, or that call will come to me or Amy Siegel or somebody else on our staff who's there to help you. So, okay, so those are the promises that we make to you. And then we view this as a partnership. And so here are the things that in the grant agreement that you promised us that you would do. So there's 7 things. 1 is that you would convene a steering team. That's what we're going to talk about today. 2 is that you're going to participate in the live webinars. So that's also what you're doing today. 3, you're going to collect data. We'll do that in January. 4, you're going to conduct, actually it says 6, but I think there's 4 local discussions that you'll participate in. And then you'll send us submissions, and you'll respond to any feedback that we send you. So again, if we're engaging and we want to work with schools that are engaged, and part of the grant was to make sure in the assurances that we had schools that were going to engage in this process. It's a waste of your time if we don't engage. It's a waste of our time if you don't engage. So we really take this agreement seriously. Then on 7, if you don't engage for some reason, if you stop working, or you're not submitting things to us any longer, the first thing we're going to do is call and see how we can help. We'll create a new timeline for you. We'll answer any questions you have. I mean, we'll be there for you. But if after we've worked out kind of a resolution, and then you still don't engage, then instead of being a grant, we'll send you an invoice for the remaining balance of the grant. So this is only a grant as long as you're engaged. If you disengage, then you're paying for the services. So, okay. And again, that was really just to make sure that the schools that got accepted for this grant were schools that really wanted to dig in and improve. So, okay. So that's the grant agreement. And let me just stop here for a minute. Tina, do we have any questions that have come up already?
Nothing so far.
Okay, so type those questions in when you have them, because we want to make sure that when you leave today, every question's answered. So let's just go through an overview about what is ASA. Well, we're a nonprofit. We were founded in 1996 by Indiana educators. We do work across the country in 41 different states, but we're founded here in Indiana, which is really nice because we keep current with Indiana rules and regs, and we make sure that all of our initiatives are aligned with Indiana rules and regs. We have a small office in Bloomington, but most of our staff works as in a virtual office. So Tina works out of her home in Otwell, where I work in the Bloomington office, and we use technology really well to keep everybody connected. Our mission is to raise student achievement and close student achievement gaps. So it's a very broad mission that allows us to do lots of different projects. Our expertise, though, is in data-driven systemic change and really looking at creating cultural change to raise student achievement. So this initiative that you're participating in right now is all about data-driven change and systemic change. We're really looking at changing the culture of your school and community to support high achievement for all kids. So that's what our expertise is in. Our improvement process is called Vision to Action. It was developed by educators, but with significant coaching and mentoring from state and national business leaders who had expertise in data-driven systemic change. So when this process was first developed in the late 1990s, there was business folks engaged in a major way to help us understand how to design a data-driven process that would help schools improve. We're currently supporting about 400 local steering teams, and now you're one of them. So we're really, really pleased to have you with us. So what is SI2? So SI2, the purpose of it is SI2 helps schools and communities work together to establish achievement goals, to identify changes that need to occur in your school and your community in order to reach those goals, and then to implement strategies that would make those changes come about. So we're achievement goals, then what's getting in the way of those goals, and then what do we need to do to address the things that are getting in the way. It's really kind of 3 steps in a nutshell. So the improvement process, SI2, the schools use this vision-based and data-driven process that is called Vision to Action. So as you work through this process this year, after every discussion that you facilitate at home, after the trainings, you'll be creating a product. The first product that we're going to talk about today is your organizational structure. So I'll talk more about that in a moment, but basically we're going to define who's your leadership team and what job is each person on your leadership team going to have. Then the next product is your vision for high achievement. And that's really, if you're a Malcolm Baldrige fan, that's where we're getting all the arrows going in the same direction to put everybody on the same page where we're going. Then we'll define very concrete achievement goals, and you'll have SMART goals as well as PAIs. And then we'll look at what's getting in the way, and you'll come up with a list of root causes, then a list of interventions, and then the final step is to come up with an intervention implementation plan. In our early years, we found that schools had great interventions that never got implemented well. They didn't have the right professional development or the right monitoring or the right evaluation of them. So in that last step, we're setting those interventions up for success. And then this online system is where you'll enter these products, and then later they'll spit out as your school improvement plan. Okay, so who participates in this? So right now, you've put together a steering team. We'll talk about your steering team in a second. Your role as steering team members is to manage the process of improvement. So you're managers of this process. This year only, you will also be the decision makers. So to get you started and to not have this be totally overwhelming, we're going to have you be the decision makers this year. Notice, though, in red in the future years, next year, you'll put together a school improvement council that is much broader in membership than just your steering team. And next year will involve a very broadly based group in making decisions. So let's go back to this year. The members of your steering team on the left are a principal, 2 teachers, and in the middle and high school we would like one of them to be a math teacher, counselor, parent, and somebody who works in economic development, either from your economic development council or somebody who's in charge of human resources in a large business in your community. We're really wanting somebody at the table who understands what the workforce needs to be like 10 years from now. And so that's why we want to make sure economic development is there. They're going to really be able to help you have some good discussions about the amount of academic rigor that your kids need in order to be successful in the future global economy. So, okay, so those are the members. That's the organizational structure for this year. Then next year, we're going to broaden the organizational structure. We actually involve every single student in whole school discussions, and we'll give you all the tools that you need to do that next year. Their job is to provide you with input, and oh my gosh, the kids are amazing with what they come up with. They know what they need to learn. And they're very good at telling us. We have found that schools can pay $10,000 for a consultant to come in to talk to you, or you could just ask the kids and you'll get the same answers. The kids are going to describe differentiated instruction. They're not going to call it differentiated instruction, but they will certainly describe every aspect of it. So kids are great. Their input is great. We'll give you lots of tools and resources to be able to have that building-wide discussion with every single kid. And then also next year, I mentioned we're putting together the School Improvement Council. There are lots of different folks that we'd like to have be at the table to have discussions with you as you update your school improvement plan next year. But for this year, you guys will be the decision makers. Okay, so one question we always get is SI2 a lot of work? So you know, it is a lot of work. I mean, we're talking about improving a school and changing a culture and using data to drive change. I mean, we're talking about really digging in and making changes that can, you know, significantly impact achievement in your school. So yeah, it's going to be some work. But here's the deal. We're going to give you all kinds of tools. You won't have to start from scratch. We will always give you discussion prompts, samples. We'll give you videos to show people before they have their discussions. We're going to give you templates. I mean, we'll give you just all kinds of things. So you're not starting from scratch. So that's going to cut down a lot of the time. Then also, most importantly, today we're going to talk about delegating tasks, and that's really important because that means that 1 or 2 people don't have to do everything. We're going to delegate those tasks 6 different ways. We asked whoever put your steering team together, we asked them to make sure that they had good worker bees on your steering team, because when everybody follows through on their assigned tasks, this just hums along. It's really smooth. The main thing, though, when I think about this being a lot of work, and I mean, our staff works really hard. You know, I work nights and weekends like you do. Like, you know, we're all educators. We all care about kids. But what keeps us at the table and doing this work and putting in the work is that this is good work. It benefits kids. And when you can start to see student achievement go up in your school, it's like, oh my gosh, this is good work. Every single minute I put into this made a difference. So, yeah, it is some work. We're going to help you every step of the way with tools and support and everything you need. But the bottom line is this is really good work because it's going to help kids in your community. So I mentioned that this works, and let's talk a little bit about that. So SI2 has had a lot of national recognition. One of the things I wanted to make you aware of is that the Council of Chief State School Officers early in SI2 published a document on a school improvement policy brief. And we were one of 8 initiatives across the country that they cited as being exemplary. And in their article, in the study that they provided for states, they talked about how one of the hallmarks of SI2 is the way that we embrace and help schools work through resistance for systemic change. So we're real pleased with that they picked up in that part of our work. We're going to talk a little bit about resistance today, actually. We think that's an important part to change, to recognize resistance, to view it as being healthy, and to figure out, you know, how to use resistance for positive means. So also wanted to make you aware that Indiana's former governor, Mitch Daniels, presented at one of our conferences, and he met at lunch with a group of our SI2 principals and had lunch with them and talked with them about SI2. And then when he got up to speak, he said that he was fascinated by SI2, and as he closed his remarks, he said, please tell other schools in your districts to join SI2. So we know that Governor Daniels had very high expectations of schools, and we're really pleased that he saw the value in SI2. We have a lot of participant testimony. One of the things I was really proud of is that in working with the Indianapolis Public Schools, we were able to make sure that they had met all of the Title I requirements and didn't have any major citations for title. So one of the things that I was really pleased with is that when they said that because of the SI2 process, that their district had not been cited for any major compliance issues from any of their audits, and they actually were able to get their title money on time because they didn't have to fix all these issues that were in previous years getting in the way. So that was something that I was really proud of. The Indiana Association of School Principals, Steve Morris, one of our superintendents / principal, he has both jobs, wrote an article about SI2 that appeared in the IASP's Indianagram last spring, and so that was something that we thought was kind of nice. But the thing that we're really looking for is to see, did student achievement in the schools that we serve go up? All those nice things that people say about us, I mean, those feel good, but the bottom line is, were students benefited? So on the screen right now, you're seeing a dissertation study that was done on us again in our early years. And interesting, this was the change in the percentage of passing ISTEP tests. And after 1 year of working with SI2, the studies showed that there were no differences. And this made sense to us because we hadn't started implementing yet. This was after the planning year. So, but after 1 year of implementation, you can see the differences in the change in the percentage of passing ISTEP tests, and then after 2 years. So, yeah, so we were real pleased with that data. In 2011, we did a look to see how, again, the increase in the percentage of passing ISTEP tests differed between SI2 schools and all schools in Indiana, and we were 42% higher in the increase in the percentage of passing ISTEP tests. So again, we're real pleased. We think this process works, which makes all the time that people put into it worthwhile. So I'm going to stop here, see again if we have any questions or comments that have come in. Tina?
Yes, Laquilla has a question. She has her hand up.
Okay, can you unmute her, or do I need to do that? Or
I sure can. Hi, Laquilla.
Hi.
Uh-oh. I think we're going to have a lot of feedback from you. Can you tell us what school you're from?
Yes.
I don't think it's going to work, Tina. Let's go ahead and mute them. I tell you what, can you guys type in your question?
Mine's on mute.
It doesn't matter.
This is on mine. Oh,
We're good now. We're good. I don't think we're getting echo now.
when she steps out that show, it'll probably.
Oh, no, we are. Tina, let's go ahead and.
Laquilla, yeah, if you'll just type in your question, Laquilla, I'll answer it.
Good. It was like, oh my gosh, that's going to be annoying. So, but thank you for having a question, first of all. But yeah, let's type that in. One other thing with the technology, if you call in on the telephone, we don't get any of that feedback ever. So if you want to make sure that there's no feedback, instead of using the voice over internet on your computer, just call in on the phone. And actually, the school we were just talking to, you could do that right now. Just call that number that's down there in the audio part in your control panel, and then then we can unmute you and we won't have that feedback. So, or type in your question, either way. Tina, any other questions?
There is one question asking if there's some more current results that we have on our data.
We could probably put that together for you. We tend to do our data studies like every 5 years or so, so we're kind of due for one. But they're incredibly time intensive. So send me an email if you'd like that, if the data that we provided isn't recent enough for you, and I could add that to our list of things to do. So no, the most recent data we have is the data that's there. So, okay. Good question. Good question. Anything else, Tina?
Let's see. Let's see. I'm looking through here as we go. I believe that's it for now.
Okay. Okay, good. So let's talk about then your job as a steering team member. So as I mentioned, the steering team is made up of 6 people, and your role is to be managers of this process. This year only, you are also decision makers, and then next year your School Improvement Council will take over that role. When the person who set up your steering team was convening the steering team members, here's what we asked them to consider. We find it works very well if at least one member of the team has the ability to allocate resources, especially the resource of time. Normally that's the school principal that's on the team who has the ability during a staff meeting to allocate time or to allocate funding that may be coming into the building. So, so we wanted one person to be able to allocate resources. We wanted another person on the team to be someone who is credible with the faculty. So, I can remember when I was in the schools where our principal or somebody would introduce a new idea, and we would all look at this one teacher who everybody really respected to see how that teacher reacted. And if that teacher thought it was okay, we thought, okay, this must be okay. So who's that person? We asked the person convening your steering team to think about, who in the school that has credibility that could bring people along. Then we also asked them to look for a natural leader. This may not be somebody who has a leader title, but just somebody who, usually stands up and is comfortable in leadership positions. People tend to follow them easily as a leader. So who is that natural leader? Then we also asked for somebody who is a natural teacher, somebody who just, instinctively is a good teacher. Who's able to motivate people and to engage people in learning. And not only, in the classroom, but looking at, teaching teachers at faculty meetings or whatever. And then finally, someone who has the authority to drop the hammer. In SI2, we want schools and communities to come along voluntarily. But at some point, if 99% of the faculty is engaged in some new initiative that you've decided to implement, and there's one faculty member that's a holdout, at some point someone has to be able to say, this is the direction we're going, and you need to get on board. So we don't like to do that because people will be on board in a much more productive manner if they're doing so voluntarily. It's why we talk about resistance a lot in our process, because we want to bring people along voluntarily. But we also, at some point you may need to drop the hammer. So it may be that one person on your steering team checks off 2 or 3 of those qualities. But we've found over 20 years of doing this that if we could get those qualities, those characteristics on the steering team, we're setting you up for success. Then we also asked for all of the members to have some history in change making. It may be a change in your leadership of Boy Scouts, or in your church, or in your school, or in your community service organization. But somehow you've got a history of making a change maker. So collectively with your steering team, this is what you've got. You've got all these characteristics on your steering team, which we think will really set you up for success with this. Okay, and then one other thing we just wanted to make you aware of is that by Indiana rules and regulations, the teacher appointments to your steering team should be made in accordance with the state and local regulations regarding teacher appointments to committees. So we gave you information about that, whoever convened your steering team in the beginning, to make sure that was going to happen. Okay, I mentioned that one of the things we wanted to talk about today was divvying up the work. So on this slide, you're seeing the 6 different point people. I'll go over each of them really quickly. The tasks that they'll perform throughout the year, and then the month where the majority of that work will happen. So, and then after we finish this webinar, we're going to ask you to kind of figure out who's going to play what roles. So the first role is the achievement data point person. That person's responsibility is to enter achievement data into the SI2 online system. So there will be, in the online system, which we'll show you in a second, in January, we will auto-populate for you any data that DOE makes public on DOE's website. But, for example, one thing that DOE does not make public are the standards mastery scores for ISTEP. And so what we've done is we've created a table that says standards mastery that looks just like the paper report that DOE has sent to you, or the online report that DOE has made available to you with a password. And so all we need to do is to just type in those numbers. So that's what you would be doing as the achievement data point person. We'll give you, we'll tell you where to find the data. You'll just, get it typed in. Also, there's some data that we find it to be very helpful for schools to monitor. For example, in the high school, one of the things we think is really helpful to monitor is the percentage of students at each grade level who are passing the Core 40 classes, so you can kind of determine where kids start to not be successful in Core 40 and decide how to design your root causes and your strategies at that point. So there's some other data that we've helped you, that we would like you to collect to support your work with us second semester. And then finally, with that achievement data, we've also created a tool where if you have any other data that you want to include in this work, you can create a data table. You decide what to call the table, how to label the columns, what you want to look at, and then our system creates that table for you, and then you just type in the data. So that enables anything else you want to look at to be able to be print out in our reports. For example, we had a school that created an in-house assessment that they used with their 5th graders. They named it the Rainbow Test, I think, and it was, it helped them keep track of the percentage of students who had passed an assessment that they gave to kids every other week. So they just created it as an assessment in our system and just dropped in the data so they could start to look at longitudinal data on that assessment. So that person will talk with the rest of the steering team and kind of figure out, okay, what data do we want to monitor, and get all that data entered into the system. And that will happen in January. Then the root cause point person on your steering team, that person is going to coordinate surveys. The root cause data is data that will help you understand what's getting in the way of learning. So we look at 7 different areas, and you'll end up with 7 different reports. One area is, for example, academic rigor, instructional practices, how you provide extra help for kids, student guidance, the learning environment, including parent involvement and discipline. So what we do to obtain that data and to get the discussions started is we'll survey every student in your building, every teacher in your building, at least 30 parents and at least 30 community members. And we'll help you get started with that. It's an online survey, and the person who's coordinating this, they're not doing all of the work. They're saying, okay, Dan, would you help make sure that all the 3rd grade students get surveyed, and Susie, will you help all the parents get surveyed? So they're coordinating it. They're not doing it all. The survey for the students is relatively easy to give. It doesn't all have to be given at the same time. There's a survey window, and what we find is, like in a high school, if every 2nd period teacher gives the survey at some point during the survey window, you will have covered every student in the building. So it's really kind of easy to initiate. We'll help you get organized with all of that. And that will happen in January. Then the adult discussion point person, this year they'll be facilitating discussions with the steering team. Next year they'll be facilitating discussions with the council. And they don't have to do that facilitation themselves. They can just make sure that it happens and divvy out those responsibilities. Also, this year, this is something new that we're doing this year, we will provide a video prompt that introduces the topic and kind of gets everybody thinking. So you'll show the video prompt to your council or to your steering team, and then after that you'll have the discussion. So we hope to make that really, really easy for you. Then after the discussion, the next point person, their job is to make sure that you've got consensus. So they'll take all of the discussion about goals and they'll kind of narrow it down into a consensus statement, and then they'll send that out to the steering team, or they'll send it out to the council next year, and they'll say, I think this is what we've come up with. Does everybody agree? We have been told by schools that reaching consensus is not too hard. Actually, I've never had a school tell us it's hard. Because of the process, because everybody has a voice in the process and everybody is respected, there's not power struggles that sometimes happen when we get to consensus building. So yeah, so that's that point person. Then the student body point person, that's something we're not going to do this year as we get started, but next year we will. That person will be in charge of facilitating a discussion throughout the building. Sometimes it happens that there's two ways that can happen. One is that we have teachers that are discussion leaders, and we say, every second period teacher, will you please facilitate this discussion in your classroom, for 20 minutes today. What normally happens is that the school will create student discussion leaders, and the students will facilitate that discussion among their peers, and that is just so cool. It's just wonderful to see kids take those leadership positions. In a lot of our schools, the teachers will actually step into the hallway so that they're there kind of monitoring, but the kids are on their own. Those students are facilitating the discussions. And again, we'll provide everything you need to set that up and make it happen. In other schools, instead of being a audio vocal discussion, it's a writing prompt, and so they'll integrate the discussion into their English classes and turn it into a writing prompt. So yeah, so that's a student body. Again, because of time constraints, and we don't want you to be too overwhelmed this year. We're not going to do student body discussions this year. You could add that in on your own if you'd like, but we are going to ask you to do it next year. And then finally, the intervention development, that point person, their work is going to be heavy in May and June. And after you've identified what strategies or what interventions you want to put in place to target your root causes, then that person will make sure that those interventions are developed, that when we need professional development, we have professional development. If there's a resource that's needed, we're getting the resources. So, and again, that's a coordination job. So it might be if you've got 4 or 5 major initiatives that you're going to implement after your study, there's a task force leader for each of those initiatives, and then this person would just be coordinating and overseeing and making sure that everything happens. So I think you can see that our organizational structure is very organized and concrete. What's not concrete is where you go with the process. So every single one of the schools that we're talking to right now, you will have different goals, you'll have different root causes because your kids are different, your community is different. Where you go with the process is driven by the data, but the process is very concrete. And again, it's based on 20 years of doing this work with schools and making mistakes along the way and getting lots of input from schools. Schools coach us a lot on what they need. So, okay. So then there will be these steering team tasks. So every month your steering team, you as a steering team member, is going to participate in a webinar like you are now. And then immediately following the webinar, there will be some kind of discussion prompt or something we've asked you to do during the webinar. And then within a week after the webinar, we would like you to submit tasks to us. And this time, these are the tasks that you're submitting. So you're going to tell us who's going to perform the work and send submissions to ASA and monitor our feedback. So you'll be submitting work to us, and then we will respond to that work. Okay, let me do one other thing and then we'll answer questions again. So you may be thinking, oh my gosh, we're not using the council until next year. There's only 6 people on the steering team. I already have a steering team or a school improvement team that's got 15 people on it. How can I get them involved? Or maybe you just want a broader discussion than just the 6 people. So that is definitely a possibility, and actually I like that idea. We aren't going to require it this year because we don't want to overload you, but if you do want to expand your council or your steering team, that would be fine. So others may sit in on your steering team discussions. They won't have any assigned responsibilities, so they're not going to be worker bees. But if you'd like people from your mayor's office or the community foundation or your faith-based organizations, higher ed, boys club, girls club, people that are interested in youth and economic development, we love to have them at the table. Next year that will be a requirement. This year it's not a requirement, but they can certainly sit on your steering team meetings if you would like to expand that steering team this year. So okay, let's take questions and then we'll talk about all the support we'll provide. So Tina, if there are any questions.
None right at the moment.
Good, good. Okay, so to help you with this work, here's what we'll provide. The leadership development webinars, that's what we're talking about right now. That's what we're doing right now. So there will be 6 of them. There's the dates. We'll talk about a different step in the school improvement process. And then at the end of each month, there will be something that you'll submit to us for review. So right now we're talking about the introduction and the organizational structure. That's today, this month's task. And then in December you'll do that, although some of you will finish it up today. And then you'll just submit that to Tina and be good to go. Okay, the online school improvement management system. I'll show you that live in a second. This is what it looks like. So actually, let's just go ahead and look at it live right now. So I am logged in as Burris, which I think I probably will end up logging in as demonstrating with Burris a lot because they are a elementary, middle, and high school, so they'll have all aspects of our work. So when you log in, you will come to a page that looks like this. This is the steering team page. And on this page, and I understand that our staff sent you your username and password, so after this webinar you'll be able to log in and do these things. But so we're just kind of looking around right now. On this page you'll see that there are 3 kind of purplish buttons. These are the ones that you use the most. The rest of these are shortcuts, and to be honest, I never use the rest of these myself. I always go to either the Uses tab, the Process tab, or the Manual tab. The first thing I'm going to show you is the Uses tab. This is very important. It's one of the tasks we want you to complete today. This is what customizes your system, and we'd like you to do this after you've just heard what we're talking about. So I'm going to click on SIP Uses. And the first thing that we're asking you is, are you planning to use your school improvement plan to meet Indiana rules and regulations? And so if you check this as yes, I won't do it because I'm in as Burris, but if you check that as yes, the system will customize, as will Tina's rubric customize. And so we'll make sure that you've met all the requirements for PL 221. We are approved by DOE to do reviews on their behalf, so at the end of the year when we say that your plan meets PL 221, they do not do a second read, they take our word for it. And then also there's a whole bunch of other kind of odds and ends requirements for schools like the Indiana graduation plan, all those things that we'll check to make sure that you've got in as part of the initiatives that you're implementing in your school. And then if you are a priority or a focus school, you would check one of those. If you're neither focus or priority, then click that neither box. These checks are really important, and again, every time you check one of those, it customizes your online system and it customizes Tina's rubric of things that she's checking for. So, okay, then in the next section, if you are a title school, we want to click if you're a TAS or a school-wide or a focus targeted. And again, we will do a friendly review for you on all the requirements for title related to school improvement planning. Then we also want to make sure that we're looking at your annual measurable objectives. A lot of times this data coming from DOE is really, really late, like sometimes several years late. So what we'll ask you to do is just to use the most recent data that you have, and then just click in which groups did not meet AMO. And then just a couple of extra things that we need is how many teachers are in the building and how many students are in your building. So, and again, this is where you're customizing the online system so that you're meeting the requirements that you want to meet, and so that we're checking to make sure that you meet the requirements that you want to meet. Okay, so that's the SIP uses tab, and that we'd like you to do as soon as we finish the webinar. Then on the process page, this is the page that you'll use mostly. And we set this up just kind of like a cookbook. So you can see that there are 3 different curricula, if you will. This is the first time and only time that you will be using the startup process. After this, schools stay with SI2 for years. After this, you'll be in Update 1 school, an Update 2 school, and then an Update 3 school, and then you'll rotate back to Update 1. And then we have you update different things, different years. Okay, but you're a startup school, so what you would do is the first step in December is read this introduction, watch this video, and that is the video that we're recording right now. So you won't have to do this step because you're participating live, but if you miss the live webinar, you can always do that. Participate in the Meeting 1 webinar. This will always give you a link to the webinar registration. Enter the SIP uses, that we just talked about that. Enter your steering team members. Enter the primary contact steering team positions. I'll go through those in a second. And then review the rubric items to make sure that your work is meeting our standards. And then on the different columns, let's kind of look at those. You can see that sometimes we give you a tool to help you do the work. Make sure you're always make sure you're looking at the tool. Then this is the enter column where you would enter your work. After you've entered the work, this is where the reports will spit out. And then when you're ready to have us check you, you just hit the submit button, and there's a couple of questions that ask you who's submitting this, and are you really ready for us to review your work? Then you say yes, and then Tina gets a flag that you'd like us to review. So let's just go into a couple of these so to kind of show you how they would work. I've already been into the SIP uses page. I went into it through this column on the left navigation bar. This would take you to the same place. Let's look at the steering team members. So I'm going to open that up on the entry, and what you'll do is just the contact person whose name we started up with, you'll already be in there. So we need you to edit this person, put in phone numbers for us and a home mailing address. And then you're going to add a new person, and you'll just type in that person's information and then hit save. So you're going to do that for all 6 steering team members. The large email preference list, this is just telling you that this person is currently included in the large email list that's maintained by our organization. Occasionally, like maybe twice a year, we'll send out a mass email about some topic or opportunity that's coming up for schools, and it would go to all those people. So if this is a person that doesn't want to be involved in our mass emails twice a year, just click that, exclude my address from the large email address list. You'll still get emails as a steering team member for us about steering team things, but these, 2 times, like we sent a large email out yesterday about a grant opportunity that's available for every school in Indiana for school counseling, and we just want to make sure that none of our schools missed it. So we sent that out to everybody. So yeah, so that would help. Okay, so that's how you do that. Save, or once the person's in there, you can also remove them. Okay, so that is, I'm going to go back, that is the steering team members. Then we want to know who's the primary contact. So this will list all of the steering team members, and then you just will check the one that you want to be the primary contact. The primary contact is not, doesn't have any, they're not the king of the steering team or anything. It's just that if we need to contact somebody quickly to ask a question, who could answer that question on behalf of the steering team? So, who do you want us to call? Okay, then the last thing is to enter your steering team positions that we just talked about. So here are the 6 positions, and right now this is council consensus. That actually is going to be changed to adult consensus. But after you get your steering team members in, you'll just hit this this arrow to select the one of the 6 that you would like to have this point position. And then when you're finished with that, hit save. So one thing that I think is kind of helpful to make sure that you've done all of your work is in this enter column, just every time that there's an icon here, this is a task that you need to complete. So this time you're doing SIP uses, you're putting your steering team members, you're identifying the primary contact, and assigning delegating tasks. Also, we put over here when you've done tasks, when you have completed tasks, just for your information, you can check them off. Schools like to do that just kind of to keep track of what they're doing. So right now I could check off participates in the webinar and that they are watching the video, or that actually they're watching it live, but they have seen this content and then save. When you log in today, you're going to see this number 2. This will be out. Our programmer is working on this right now. So the next thing that appears will be January and then collect data. A couple other things to point out. Some of this is, you'll see, is gray instead of black. That's because we don't want you to complete these steps until you've completed previous steps. So anything that is really important that you do them in order, we've grayed out or made orange until you've completed previous steps, so you don't get your work out of order. Each step builds on the previous step. Okay, so that's the online system real quickly. One other thing I want to show you is the manual. This is the steering team manual. It gives you everything you need. So for example, when you are ready to have your discussion about vision, we'll give you slides to use. We'll give you samples. Everything will be here, as well as we will model this presentation for you and give you the video that you need or that you could use as the discussion prompt. Okay, I want to wrap up here. I know we're kind of running out of time. Let me see. So that's the online system. I've kind of talked about all this. That's one of the tables just to show you what it looks like after we auto-populate data from DOE into our system. That's what our surveys look like. So this is a high school survey that for a 12th grader. I expect to earn the Indiana Core 40 diploma. I expect to continue at my education after high school. And then we've put these same questions on for parents and teachers, but the teacher survey would say, I expect almost all my students to earn an Indiana Core 40 diploma. Or the parent survey would say, I expect my child to earn an Indiana Core 40 diploma. All the surveys are grade level specific and grade level appropriate. Okay, one other thing I wanted to point out to you, because we are on an online system, we're able to provide you with a lot of analytic reports that will help you assess the strength of your school improvement plan. For example, in this report, we've taken the turnaround principles and we've identified which of your interventions or strategies are addressing each of the turnaround principles, and that will help you see, if there's a principle that you're not hitting as much as the others. So there's several of these analytic reports that we'll provide for you. You don't have to type them in; the system just spits them out, and that will help you assess your school improvement plan. We've talked about getting the reports to DOE. Tina, there's Tina. There's her phone number. I would jot that down right now so that you have it. And first thing tomorrow, or probably right after today, after the webinar, she'd be available to answer your calls. Tina, I know that will be after work hours for you, but I know you always try to hang around to answer schools' questions. So 812-349-4142. There is her email address, weissman@asainstitute.org. And you'll like Tina. She's a lot of fun to work with. We also have this rule that I wanted to make you all aware of. We call it our 5-minute rule. And that rule, and we really are serious about this rule, that rule is that if you are ever confused for more than 5 minutes, you are required to call us. So it just is so frustrating when schools will say, oh, we didn't want to bother you, and oh my gosh, that's what we're here for. We want you to bother us. So Tina has changed that to the 5-second rule. So anytime you're confused, just pick up that phone and call us. We really want to help, or send us an email. So I talked about the 48-hour feedback, submitting work. That's what the feedback looks like. So we check off that you've met the rubric items, and then we'll, put in some comments if you've done something that's outstanding, or if we need you to revise something. So we talked about friendly reminders. In the manual, there is a PGP log. If you are in need of PGP points to renew your license, you can earn up to 90 professional growth points for the work that you spend doing SI2 activities. So that form, that log, needs to be submitted to us by next June. So I love this picture. I know probably right now you're feeling overwhelmed because we just talked about a whole year's worth of stuff all at once. So always remember, the only thing you need to worry about is the next 4 weeks. We like to present the overview because some of you like the big picture, but all you really need to think about right now is getting those 4 quick tasks done. Then come back to the January webinar and we'll talk about the January tasks. So we've asked our previous schools what advice they would give you if as you're starting SI2, and overwhelmingly what we hear is trust the process. They say that, if we love kids and we understand global economics, raising student achievement is a no-brainer, and they wanted to assure you that SI2 makes this manageable through a step-by-step process, task delegation, and tons and tons and tons of resources. So trust the process, use us, we're here to help. Call Tina if you have a quick question, call Tina if you want to schedule an hour appointment with her to really dig into something you're thinking about. We consider us part of your team, and we hope you consider us part of your team. So I'm going to let's get started, and then we'll close the webinar, answer questions, close the webinar, and give you a chance to work. So here's today's tasks. You need to do the steering team roster, the SIP uses page, and do the point persons assignments, and identify your contact person. So those 4 boxes in the online system, the entry boxes. Okay. So there's how you get into the system, www.asainstitute.org/SI2. Then in the left-hand column, you're going to click on Login for Steering Teams, put in your username and password, and then do those 4 tasks. I mean, really, that shouldn't take very long at all. Call Tina if you have questions, and we'll be happy to help. So, okay, quick word about resistance. So here's what we tend to hear from schools when they first start SI2. When they start to talk about it, and this is really important, when they start to talk about SI2 with their teachers, they'll often tell us that what the teachers will say is, oh, we've been there, we've done that. And so here's some thoughts about how to address that. You can suggest to them that this is maybe not like the things that you've done before, because we're not giving you a model. We're giving you a discovery process. It's not a one-size-fits-all model. You get to go wherever you want to go with this. And, we don't know if you've been there before because you've never, probably participated in a process like this. Also, we think it's helpful if you could let people know that this process is driven by local data and local people. It's not a state mandate. There's nothing that we will ever tell you have to do. It's always up to you. There is significant steering team support, technical assistance from our organization, and this is a proven process. So if folks are like, oh man, we've done this before, these are some of the ways that you might answer them. Also, I think a lot of it depends on how you present this. If you come to school tomorrow and you say, oh my gosh, this is going to be fantastic. We are going to have all this this technical support and these tools, and there's this online system that's going to help us manage this, and oh my gosh, this is going to be wonderful. People will, you know, if you present it like that, people will it's contagious, that attitude. If you go back tomorrow and you say, oh, this is going to be so much work and blah, 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 people are going to pick up that attitude. So think about what attitude you want folks to have in your building as you're talking about this, and you've got to project that attitude. Okay. People will also say, we seriously don't have the time. And you know, that's true. We've been educators for decades in schools. We understand that teachers are busy. But we've tried to address that, and you can share with them that this is a step-by-step process. Tasks are delegated. There's tons of resources. You're not starting from scratch. And it merges all school improvement requirements under one umbrella. So PL 221, Title I, Focus Priority, you know, all the odds and ends, the Indiana Graduation Plan, the Elementary Reading Plan. I mean, all of that is going to be housed in under one umbrella. That actually saves schools times, because they don't end up with a Title I plan and a Focus Priority School plan and a PL 221 plan. It's just one plan. So, okay. And then finally, another thing you're going to hear, we think, is this is just another top-down thing we are made to do. And that is absolutely not the case. You've certainly done this voluntarily. It wasn't about getting the money, I don't think, because the grant amount was not that much, and all of the funding is coming in all of the grant is coming as in-kind services to you. You know, we're doing this voluntarily, and it's not us making decisions and telling you what to do. It's the steering team that's making decisions. And then later the School Improvement Council will make all the decisions. So it's just a process and a bunch of tools to help you guys figure out what needs to happen in your schools. So, okay, so wanted to say a little bit about resistance. Let's take questions and then we'll close. And we try very hard to stick to the 1 hour webinar timeline, and I know I'm a little bit over, so I apologize. There's just a lot of things to cover in this intro. So, Tina, questions?
Most everything was housekeeping type things, and I've answered those along the way, so I think we're good. And just a reminder, it's 4:38 where I'm at, and I'll be available until 5 o'clock today.
Okay.
If any of you want to call or email me, I'll be on hand. And then, Sue, there was one other question, but that was more of a theoretical question, so I'll send that to you in an email, because
Okay.
I know you'll want to add some thought.
Okay, very good. So we are, so no other questions, that's it?
That's it.
Okay, so I'll just close by saying how excited we are to have you all involved. We love this work. It's certainly a work of passion for us. And again, when we start to see the student achievement go up, that is really, that's really amazing. Keep in mind too, I wanted to address one other thought occurred to me on that, that data question. We look at ISTEP data because it's the, and of course assessment data, because it's the only data that all schools have. But each of our schools monitors their own data for their own goals. So like, you know, a high school may have a goal to increase the percentage of students who succeed in an AP course, percentage of graduates who succeed in an AP course. And so that school's monitoring that data. So while we only do these mega data studies, you know, once every 5 or 6 years, the schools have data that shows that in their building with their goals and their data targets, they're seeing that achievement go up. So wanted to mention that as well. Okay, that's it. We'll close the webinar, and please feel free to call Tina, and anytime you're confused. You know, we covered a lot today. Tomorrow, if it's all fuzzy, call Tina and she can go over it all again with you if you'd like. So whatever. So, okay, very good. Everybody have a nice evening and good luck as you start, and please, please, please don't hesitate to call us. Thanks, everyone.